Well, thanks for not running me off after this morning. And, you know, what's really kind of funny, having an old cowboy talk about direct marketing and talk about some of the microbiology, very complex soil structure is really kind of silly, especially when a guy like me with limited intelligence. And this guy in the front at a farmer's market, you can tell he's a cowboy from Missouri. See the tennis shoes? That's kind of what we're dealing with when you're listening to me. By the way, he's a good friend of mine, and he didn't mind me talking bad about him like that. And getting Ray, I really like talking to Ray. Reminds me of a story. I went to the doctor. My wife tells this story. She's with me quite a bit. She always likes to tell this story. I get a little bit embarrassed about it, but she told a story about me going to the doctor a few years ago and got my annual checkup, I didn't really hear a lot about it until my wife started telling the story, whether I passed or failed. But she tells that the doctor called about a week later and said, Donnell, that's my wife, and this is the doctor calling my wife. And my wife says, the doctor said, I've got some concerns about Cody. And boy, she really got worried. She thought there were some big medical problems with me. And she said, you know, I know that he's a good Christian man, and he talks about God. And he said, he come into my office and said, Doc, I just want to tell you that me and God are really, really close. He said, this is the doctor talking after I talked to the doctor, telling my wife, because my wife is all concerned, and the doctor's concerned. And the doctor is telling my wife that Cody came in and said, he's really close to God. And he said, whatever he asks God for, he gives him. And he said, this is what Cody said. He said, I need more species of animals to eat some of the brush. So, poof, goats just appeared. And this went on and on and so on. And he said, now that's probably probable. But then he started talking about this thing about the lights coming on in a room. He said, this is what Cody said. He said he walks into a room, and all of a sudden, in a dark room, and the lights go on in the middle of the night, instantaneously. Cody walks in a dark room, the lights come on. It's got to be something from God. And my wife Donnell says, oh my goodness, he's peeing in the refrigerator again. That's kind of what you got when you got an old cowboy talking about marketing. Especially a guy like me. I was a CPA for many years when I was putting my farm together, working as a tax accountant. That's bad enough, okay? I have no marketing background at all. All of our experience has come the hard way. My wife is substantially better at marketing than I am. On our little operation, we could not afford a professional marketing company. We still cannot afford a professional marketing company. Therefore, all of our marketing is very non-professional. And I don't really like talking about marketing too much. It is something that involves me on a daily basis, involves my wife on a daily basis, which has all but removed me and my wife from farming responsibilities, because we have not been able to come up with a solution to market our products in a more professional way than what the farmer and his wife can do it. I don't know that that's necessarily something that I would want you to repeat. It's what we did. It seems to be working. We sell more every year than we did before. We will probably, I haven't finished the books for 2012 this year, and just to give you an idea, we probably will break that $200,000 sales, gross sales of direct marketed products of beef, pork, chicken, lamb, turkey, raw milk, and cheese. That's substantially higher than the $4,400 the first year we did it several years ago. It is working. It has been an enormous amount of work off the farm to market our products. If I was to venture a number, I would say probably a ratio of 3 to 1. What I'm saying is, for every 1 hour spent farming, you could probably anticipate 3 hours to spend marketing and distribution. The way that we're doing it, okay? And everything that I talk about may not necessarily be the right way to do it, including farming. And you're saying, now you're telling me that. Well, I try to use, whether I'm talking about my cattle or my dung beetles or making cheese or selling it to the public schools, I'm talking about personal experience, what we are doing from a from a very unprofessional cowboy standpoint. Okay, so let's just jump right in, and I'm going to tell you the story of the last 10 years or so of how the route that we chose to move away from the commodity sale of our farm products into what some call value added, or some would call direct marketing. Remember, this is a family that had no idea what to do and how to do it right. We just did it. I think it's very common for folks in our position, and some that may not be quite in our position when we first started. The chosen route was farmers markets. I think that's a very good place to jump in, to test products, to teach old worn-out cowboys like this on what a product should look like. It teaches you what the consumer will want and what he absolutely wants nothing to do with. We also for me, I've had to realize that we are selling food. And truthfully, that should be something very apparent, but for most cow people, a lot of cow people, I should say that way, a lot of livestock producers, and maybe even a lot of grain producers, we've gotten for so many decades this idea that we're not really selling food, we're just selling a commodity, or we're just selling stuff. When you leave the farm or ranch and you go to town with your products, and you're setting up a booth like this, and you've got these people from town that probably are at least 1 to 3 generations removed from what a farm really is, they don't have any idea what you're talking about when you're talking about a commodity. They really have this opinion, especially 10 years ago, that farmers produce food, and all farmers produce food and sell food and take it from the soil to the plant to the packaging to the kitchen table. That's what they think people do. Now, over the last 10 years, the consumer, right in front of our eyes, has been educated at a much higher level. This is really good for those of us that have decided to capitalize on value-added products, on direct marketing. It may not be so good for those farmers who are saying, the heck with what the consumer wants, he'll eat what we want, what we choose to produce. I think the number of consumers, I know the number of consumers that are becoming more educated about production methods on the farm and will be get-in-your-face type attitude about, I'm demanding that this pig not eat GMO feed, or that this tomato not be sprayed with any kind of pesticide. Those are the customers that I think are increasing at a very fast rate. They are still a minority, there's no question about it. But that is the customer that we have been seeking out. So here we go on the farm. We actually went to this first farmer's market about 10 years ago, had no idea what we were doing, and we didn't sell a lot of product. Our packaging was horrible. All we had was beef. In Missouri, I was one of who knows how many farmers had only beef. Very hard to sell something everybody's got. So we didn't do very well. So we started not only looking at the multi-species benefits of grazing on a farm, but it was also congruent with having the ability to give a variety of product to the consumer. So when we went to a farmer's market like this, and there's 35 other guys selling some kind of meat, and 22 of those guys are selling beef, what's the chance of you as a farmer selling beef, what's the chance of you selling a large amount of beef that day when there's 21 other guys doing the same thing that you're doing? But what if you're the only guy selling lamb, or you're the only guy selling ground turkey, or a pork chop, or a chicken? That was the route that we chose, to be not specialized in any one product. This probably against all marketing rules. In today's world, it seems like what you see is specialization in everything. I'm not going to be able to stand up and tell you that from a ranching standpoint that this is what you should do. I'm telling you this is what we are doing. And we are succeeding slowly, year after year after year. I get a lot of criticism for pulling into we don't do it any longer, but having such a large variety of products. Beef, pork, chicken, lamb, turkey, raw milk and cheese, eggs, and for the last 4 or 5 years, we've gotten pretty deep into market gardens. We'll probably sell in excess of $60,000 worth of tomatoes alone this coming season. So when someone calls us up and says, what do you guys raise? We say, well, what do you want? Like I said, that probably goes against all teachings of marketing of products, because we do not specialize in a product like that. Good or bad, that's what we do. And probably the multi-species animals on the farm and the benefits that we're getting from the production level on the farm had a lot to do with that. But there's another part of our marketing that drove that. Okay, let's go back to the beginning when we went to that first farmer's market. And I don't know of anybody that's making a living feeding their family going to one farmer's market a week. By the way, most farmer's markets are on a weekly basis. And you have to wait another 7 days before you can go back to that market and sell. At the peak of our farmer's market life, we were going to 9 farmer's markets a week. That's me or my wife, while running our ranch, we're going someplace off the ranch 9 times a week. Sometimes we're going to 2 a day. A farmer's market, not unlike this right here. Even though the farmer's market might have only been 5 or 6 hours long, by the time we packaged up, spent 5 or 6 hours at the market, an hour or so driving each way, got home, got everything unpacked, it was pretty much the entire day. And we did that 9 times a week. We're still developing our product, we're getting our name out there, and constantly looking for other ways to market our products. One of the first product that we direct marketed, we did by accident. And it wound up being the key driver for everything we do now. And we didn't recognize it in the beginning what it was. Now we capitalize on it. And remember, we just stumbled on this. I showed you a couple pictures of my wife and her dairy cows, and we've had, like I said this morning, we've had a dairy cow, a family dairy cow ever since I can remember. And my wife would milk the cow out in the pasture, and then some time ago, a neighbor asked us if we had any extra milk. Well, we did. And then another neighbor, and then the neighbor's cousin, and pretty soon, Donnell's milking 2 or 3 cows and selling milk over and above what we need. She's still doing this by hand. And this kept going on while I'm out there trying to sell the beef off of 300 cows, okay? Cut up in little bitty packages, USDA inspected meat, which I'll get into a little bit more. And she's just selling this milk left and right, okay? For $8 a gallon. Raw milk, $8 a gallon. By the way, a pretty poor Jersey cow can give 600 gallons a year. Times 8 is $4,800 a year. I'm trying to sell beef and really beat my head against the wall, and she's just selling milk like crazy. And then we say, wow, maybe that person that's buying milk, and maybe a few other people, they could use a T-bone steak or a pound of ground beef, and now maybe a lamb chop. But it was hard to sell this other stuff in this environment until someone came to us and said, do you have any extra milk? And then, by the way, do you have any of that ground beef? So we thought, wow, this is really kind of strange. We should have probably recognized it a long time ago. Then we started thinking, you know, there's something that happened that stopped in the marketing of farm products about the 1950s. And what stopped was that practice of the farmer taking his completed project, food, which we would now call value-added, and delivering it directly to the customer, to their house. And there's probably plenty of us in this room can kind of see where this is going. One of the last farmers types that did that was the dairyman, selling milk and cream and butter and some eggs also on a door-to-door basis, on a pre-order basis. In fact, there is still a company in outside of Denver, Colorado that never stopped. They were selling raw milk and eggs delivered to the residents back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and it never stopped. They're still doing it today. And we decided if that was a good thing for customers and that's what they wanted 60, 70 years ago, and we've got these handful of customers and neighbors that are asking for it, maybe we should take this more serious. So we started taking the dairy more serious, and we devised a home delivery system. And that's where things get really complex for a guy like me. My wife now spends when she's not in the dairy barn, she spends 6 days a week in the office taking orders. And this is how this works. Excuse me. Let me back up just a little bit. I told you that we used to do 9 farmers markets a week, and we still do 1 farmers market a week. And you're probably going to ask, why do you still do 1 farmers market a week? We are not concerned how many sales we have at the farmers market on that one Saturday morning a week. What we are extremely concerned with, I have a sign-up sheet in the back by my books that are for sale, exactly like that at that one farmers market. We had that sign-up sheet at all 9 of those farmers markets and all the farmers markets we were at for about 10 years. And what we were doing, we were asking people if they chose to sign up for our email newsletter, if you want to keep in touch with what's happening on the farm, and if you want to be considered now for home delivery. So one of the duties that my wife has in the office is to produce a newsletter that goes out every Monday morning, an email newsletter that goes out to everyone that's ever signed that newsletter in the last 10 years or so. Now, we do a lot of other events on the ranch for visitors that come, events similar to this where we have people that come from all over the country. So there might be there is several thousand names on that newsletter that goes out every Monday morning that are not potential buyers. If any of you folks sign up on our newsletter, you're going to get a newsletter from us every Monday. It is the exact same newsletter that the buyers in Springfield, which is a town about 50 miles from our ranch, that is our basic place where most of our customers are. If you are interested in doing what we're doing, I would recommend that you sign up for no other reason that to see what we put in our newsletter if you wanted to create a newsletter and a home delivery system for yourself. So what are we doing here? What we're trying to do is build a nucleus, and we've done it so far, and it's succeeding. It is just now, we get new orders every single week. We went for years maybe not getting a new customer for 2 or 3 months at a time. I think last week we added 3 new customers in 1 week. It is exponential. But what we were doing at this farmer's market, not only perfecting our product, but we were collecting names, okay? We're collecting possible sales. So this newsletter that my wife writes, I have a little bitty section at the bottom called Cody's Corner. Some of you may be getting it, I'm not sure. And it's a newsletter that shows what we've got for sale on special, some meat bundles. Of course, it always has a little story about what's going on at the ranch. And then there's Cody's Corner down at the bottom that's going to talk about more of the farming and ranching issues. But what this newsletter does, it puts us into direct communication on a repeat scenario with every one of our customers and potential customers. Okay. The newsletter goes out on Monday morning. The newsletter says, if you are interested in ordering this week, you have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday till midnight to order. How do they order? They send an email order in with their credit card information. All of the repeat customers, we have their credit card on file. Thursday is packing for these people on this side of Springfield. And Friday would be the delivery date for the south side of Springfield. How does this work with the delivery? They've already ordered. Let's say a mother calls in, a housewife calls in. She says, I want 3 pounds of ground beef, 3 gallons of milk, cow's milk, a couple of T-bones, and if it's produce time, 5 pounds of tomatoes. Okay, that order is put in, it's processed through our computer system. Credit card charges it on our account immediately. All of that product is put into a styrofoam cooler. On Friday, that customer is going to get that styrofoam cooler, if they're a new customer, a brand new styrofoam cooler, on their front porch while they're at work. Most husbands and wives in town work. Nobody's home while we're delivering. And by the way, we prefer it the other way. We're dropping off that cooler full of fresh farm food, and when they come home from work, there it is. The next week, particularly if they're a milk customer, which almost everybody is, they set the empty glass jars that the milk was in the cooler. We take the next Friday, we take those empty jars out, put the full jars in, and the new meat order, and it goes on week after week after week. That was a system designed that took us away from farmers markets. We knew that we were limited to how much product we could sell across the table in a few short hours at a farmer's market. We knew we had no future in building a business of selling products at the level we wanted to sell at a farmer's market. But it was excellent training. Excellent training. And I even learned I could wear tennis shoes and wear a cowboy hat at the same time. And this guy there. It takes from a farmer's standpoint, from a cowboy standpoint, it really is a hard place to jump from the farm to dealing with consumers. Let's go into this a little bit deeper. I'm going to tell you about some of our other marketing avenues, our distribution systems. But what I wanted you to know so far is that home delivery system is our primary distribution system, and we get full retail value for doing that. We can reach about little over 100 houses in one day for about $40 worth of fuel. Let's go on. We'll come back to that a little bit and why that's important. We are no longer selling animals. Yeah, we're still farmers, and about 2 times a year, the first Saturday in June and the first Saturday in November, a great number of our customers come out to our Customer Appreciation Day, which is enormously important for the marketing of our products. On these 2 days, it's the only 2 days of the year that anyone can come to the ranch, jump on a hayride that I pull around in my air-conditioned tractor when it's hot, and we go to all the different animals, all the different dairy barns, all the gardens, and they see how their farm products are raised with no GMO, no pesticides, no chemicals, on and on and on and on and on. And by the way, it would be a mistake to think that that type of conversation is over the heads of someone who is 3 generations removed from the farm. Not at all. Sometimes some of these people have more knowledge than I do about the nutritional needs of the human body, for sure, and the nutrient content that should be in some of these products. And they are very informed on GMOs and pesticides. Let's go. Just keep on going. We are selling food, we're not selling animals. We're not selling meat, we're selling meals. And what meal will you sell? Just our product list increases. I think we've got about 140 different products. And this is a list of some of the products that are just beef products alone. Remember, we're selling beef, pork, chicken, lamb, and on and on and on and on. Some of the products that, I thought selling meat, selling beef was right here. T-bones, ribeyes, Kansas City strip. I thought that's what being in the meat business was all about. Man, was I wrong. I was really backwards. It is an extremely small percentage of what we're doing. I don't have the marketing experience to tell you why. I can make all kinds of guesses which have absolutely no value whatsoever. The important part of this is these top ends right now are a very small amount. They're also a very small amount of the components of the beef cut up too. But they are not what we strive for. We might go 3 or 4 months and never sell an expensive steak, and that doesn't bother me a bit. See this right here? This bratwurst and hot dogs and ground beef. That's where most of it goes. Our ground beef is $5.99 a pound. Our bratwurst is $7.99 a pound. Those are not low prices. Those are significantly higher than the low end of what you would see in any grocery store. I just shipped a whole hog to New York one day last week. I should say my wife did. New York City. A whole hog, took 3 boxes. It cost almost as much to ship the hog as what the hog sold for. We're dealing in a marketing world. Okay, I should say it this way. I'm dealing in a marketing world that I do not understand. I can't comprehend it. I'm just going with the flow. And the most important thing that we do is listen to what our customers are saying. When they say something like, we don't eat T-bone steak, we don't want Kansas City strip, it is a waste of my time and theirs to try to convince them to buy a Kansas City strip. I've got to learn, and this is hard. I am trying to still learn to listen to what that customer wants and then go back to the farm and produce it. The bratwurst, the hot dogs, and the ground beef on the beef side is what we are selling. Of course, it doesn't vary a whole lot from pork. Pork is a whole lot easier to sell than beef. How do I say this? Comparatively, a good pork chop, I think our pork chops are $6.79 a pound. I would compare a good pork chop raised the way we raise it, that tastes like ours, to a T-bone that sells for $12.99 a pound. So it's a less expensive product. I think that has a lot to do with it. We sell more pork than any other meat that we have, and we have more cows. We used to have more cows than anything we have. So here I am, deciding 10 years ago, I'm going to go out there and sell a whole bunch of our beef, and now I am 10 years later, I'm telling you, beef's not my main product. Pork, we're selling more pork than we do beef. Strange. From this guy's standpoint, it's very strange. But I'm going to go with it, and I would never try to convince a pork chop buyer to quit buying pork chops and start buying T-bone steak. I think it's silly. Lamb is becoming a really good product. We've got a little over 400 ewes, so we're producing a lot of lamb meat. Up until this year, up until right now, actually as I'm speaking, we've been able to either direct market all of our lambs that we wanted to direct market in piece by piece. And I'll get back to that again. There's a whole lot of details here. Or sell breeding stock. We had a program. I've had to back off just a little bit. We're getting ready to pick it back up again. We were selling 10 bred young ewes, virgin ewes, first time ewes, but bred, and a guard dog for $3,600. That's a pretty good value on those animals. So we were selling a lot of, we call them starter kits, because I travel a lot of places. A lot of people are seeing the value of these small ruminants, and a good quality small ruminant, particularly a hair sheep, is really hard to find, and a good guard dog is even harder to find. So we're selling lamb meat, and we're selling these bundles, starter kits of bred ewes, a ram, and a guard dog. So you gotta, on this marketing thing, it's almost, you gotta kind of play it by ear and don't be so hardcore and saying, by golly, I've got beef cows and all I'm going to sell is T-bone steak. I think that would be the quickest way to make this thing not work. We are just now getting to the point where I have not been able to direct market all of my ram lambs. Okay, obviously I can't sell a ram lamb as a bred ewe, so I can't put her over in the starter kit And we're going to have to come up with a new idea where I'm going to have to start selling ram lambs on the commodity market. And for what we've been getting for lamb meat, it would be a substantial reduction in value on those lambs. On lamb meat, again, on lamb meat, it's ground lamb is the #1. And I don't see, oh yeah, here it is. This stew meat, especially this time of year. We take, they both sell in 1 pound packages. We take chunks of meat, I don't care where it's at on the animal. Sometimes I cut the whole lamb up. I'll take 10 lambs up to the butcher and process all 10 lambs into stew meat. 1 inch chunks of meat cut up into 1 packages and a recipe attached on how to cook a lamb stew. It sells like wildfire. And it sells for somewhere around $7 or $8 a pound. Very good product. These are a bunch of laying hens. Eggs are a lot like the milk. It was a big surprise to us that people actually would pay $4 a dozen for a farm egg, but they will, and we never have eggs. We are sold out of eggs all the time. No matter how many hens we keep raising, we are constantly sold out of eggs. Almost without fail, when the phone rings or an email comes in, it's to order milk and eggs for home delivery. We have a $25 minimum for home delivery. You cannot buy 1 gallon of milk and we will not deliver 1 gallon of milk. Your total order must be a total of $25 or more, not just milk, it can be anything else. Somebody calls up and says, hey, I heard you got fresh eggs. I would like a dozen eggs. They're only $4 a dozen. They have to go ahead and buy another $21 worth of something. But they call for their milk and eggs. I think they call that a lost leader in the big grocery stores. Only we make money on that $4 worth of eggs. Not a lot. Organic, we're paying $32 a hundred, $37 a hundred for organic chicken feed. Unbelievable. You need $4 a dozen at that price. These are the broilers. We run probably average of 400 to 500 broilers at a time. This is how we used to raise them. These were the Joe Saddleton style pens. They were about 10 foot by 10 foot, about 3 foot tall, and they each would hold about 50 to 75 birds. We now are doing it a little bit differently. Obviously, these are meat birds. They're out on pasture. They're eating grass and being supplemented by organic feed. We now have a different system that we like much better. We built these considerably larger hoop houses, and they'll hold a couple of hundred birds. And we free range the birds all the time, except during the nighttime. You shake a bucket, and they all go back in the feed into the pen, the hoop house, about dark. Makes raising birds a lot easier. I didn't come up with that idea on my own. I come up. The broilers, the chickens have always been a problem on the production side. The demand is enormous. The production was killing us on labor. And I run across this guy from somewhere down in Oklahoma, and he was raising 42,000 birds at a time. He had 7 typical commercial chicken houses, 7 of them. And he put 6,000 birds in each one, and he had some very inexpensive labor that, and each house had its own 2 people of inexpensive labor. Won't go into where he got the labor. 6,000 birds in each house, 42,000 birds at one time. Each house had 2 laborers with 2 or 3 border collies. When the sun come up in the morning, all of these very cheap labor and their border collies went to the chicken houses, opened the door, and all the birds went out, and they herded with their border collies 6,000 birds over their entire farm and ranch all day long. About dark time, the border collies brought in the cheap labor, brought the birds back into the standard building for predator control during the night. He's doing that on a large scale. We get $4.79 a pound for a broiler. It's a very good price. Other than our produce, that it's very hard to make any more money per acre than what a broiler will make. And people want them. But under this system, we call it the Joe Salatin system, it will eat you alive on labor. So we're only doing a few hundred at each broiler house. We're expanding, and I don't know if we'll ever build broiler houses that will hold 6,000 apiece, but certainly it is easier to herd chickens than I thought. They herd very easily. They really do. So meat chicken, a broiler, is a very good product for us. There's not a day goes by we don't sell chicken. Every single day except Sunday. We do no Sunday sales. I'm going to talk very little about the legal requirements on selling and processing meats because there's some variation from state to state. In a little while, I'm going to tell you what we're having to do in Missouri, which may or may not equal what you have to do whatever state you're from, like North Dakota. I think we could process something like 22,000 birds on the farm if we choose to. Without any kind of inspection. We no longer process our birds on the farm to any sizable amount of birds anyway because of the labor issue. Because we're processing so many at one time, we're loading those birds up like cattle into a stock trailer, taking them to a processor an hour and a half away, and going back and picking up a bird that's already packaged and ready to sell. It costs us a little bit more money, but we have that much demand for broilers that we haven't come up with a way to process them on the farm, even with no inspection, with the labor force that we have. And I want to talk about our labor force because it probably should be obvious to you that me, my wife, and my kids probably not do all these things that we're talking about, and that's absolutely the truth. And I want to tell you what's some of the things that we've done to solve those problems. This is some old photographs of killing day, chicken killing day on the farm. We still do process the first round of turkeys in November on the farm with this same method. And these are our customers. A lot of times when we were doing a lot of chickens, we might have 10 to 20 people coming out to help sometimes, but we like to visit with them and they like to visit, but we didn't get very many chickens processed. Okay? And when you've got 1,500 chickens to process today, the conversations need to be short. Okay? And these are not paid help, so you kind of got to take it with it. These are mostly customers, and they're very proud of what they're helping us with. Let's go back. Let's go back to. Am I still on? Let's go back to this distribution of product, which is, we can come up with all these systems on the farm, these multiple species of raising the products at a very high successful rate, but the commodity-driven system has changed, even in my lifetime, has changed the availability of where you can market a product. If you had a bunch of feeder pigs today, what are your options to sell that feeder pig? It's not like it was even 30 years ago. Or if you've got a bunch of chicken processed, where are you going to sell it? Even as a live chicken, we're going to sell a live chicken. So we can develop a very, very professional, efficient system on the farm to grow all these animals out, and even the processing of the meats. But the marketing of that product, of actually getting it to that customer, is a complete different business. The name of my ranch is one of the oldest brands that's been on the books in Missouri, is the Rockin' H Ranch. That is the name of my ranch. 10 years ago, when we started direct marketing products, we created a company, a label, if you will, an LLC. It's called Real Farm Foods. All of our products, the label on our product, the label on a pound of ground beef says Real Farm Foods. That is a marketing tool. It's a brand. Yeah, it's produced at the Rockin' H Ranch. There's a sign coming into my ranch that says on top of the gate post says Rockin' H Ranch and established such and such, and there's another sign that says Rock H Ranch, home of real farm foods. And everybody that visits the farm sees that. We want our customers to see that. We're building a brand name in a very hillbilly way, the only way we know how to do it with our limited marketing skills, okay? So Real Farm Foods is an LLC, it is a brand, it is what people know. People don't know who the Rock H Ranch is. Remember, we're not, for the most part, we're not talking to farmers and ranchers. We're talking to people that are used to buying their food in the grocery store with some kind of label on it, okay? Funny thing happened when we first started trying to sell beef. Remember, that's what we were. We were cow-calf people. We thought people were going to jump out of their houses to buy our T-bone steaks. One of the things that we tried to do, extremely unsuccessful, was to sell wholes and halves and quarters, okay? A whole beef, by the way, we get $2.50 a pound live weight for our beef. We get no more sales by dropping our price to $1.25 a pound. Believe me, we've done all these things. So if you're saying, well, my golly, Cody, you're getting $2.50 a pound live weight for a cow, no wonder you're not selling very many cows. We've dropped that. We've played with prices and structures for 10 years. It doesn't matter. Price is irrelevant. That's coming from somebody that knows nothing about marketing except our own products. We can lower the price. We can offer giveaways. It doesn't matter. What matters are things like, to these kind of people, is do you use GMOs? Do you use pesticides? Do you use antibiotics? They don't know what an ionophore is. They know what it's about. They say, are you feeding that stuff in your feed? They know these things. That type of customer knows nothing about raising animals in reality. They don't know a whole lot about the processing of the animal, but they don't care what the price is with it given a reasonable amount. So we were trying to sell quarters, halves, and wholes, no matter what the price is. There was two reasons we were unsuccessful. Didn't matter the price. We were unsuccessful for a couple of reasons. Number one, those people didn't know that's how you could buy meat, for one thing. A 1,000-pound animal at $2.50 a pound is $2,500. That's quite a bit of money for most anybody. And you had to have a freezer. Number one, very few people have $2,500 laying on the table. Number two, hardly anybody has a freezer. Most people don't even know where to buy a freezer. We struck out cold on selling wholes, halves, and quarters. We pretty much gave up on it. We still make them available, and we sell 20 or 30 beeves a year like that, but it's not something we really spend any energy at all doing. We sell a whole hog for $2.50 a pound also. A whole hog weighs 300 pounds, that's $750 for a hog. I sell more hogs than I do beef like that, and a lot of those are going to restaurants at that price. So selling the whole animal itself for freezer-type beef, what some of us old guys would refer to freezer beef, we were not successful at. We still do it. But remember, I've got roughly 300 calves born every year. I don't think I could ever in my lifetime find even 260 or 70 buyers for whole animals every year. I don't think we can do it. So we started looking for these other ways. What are some of these other ways? I told you earlier about our sign-up sheets for our newsletter. That is our primary marketing tool. That newsletter for home delivery. We gain 100% of retail value. Some of the other methods that we use, good or bad, obviously is the wholesale market. Some of the wholesale markets that we use are as the following. We sell into a handful of grocery stores, large grocery stores. We sell into a larger number of small health food stores. I don't want to miss out any of these things. We sell into a growing number of public schools, especially with our produce. Our produce is our main product with our schools. Once they start buying our produce, they quickly start buying ground beef primarily, hot dogs, that type of thing. Remember, we're talking kids, feeding kids. So schools, the health food stores are really good for us. The big, like Hy-Vee and Schnucks, those type of stores, grocery stores. those are some volume sales at wholesale. To give you an idea, our wholesale price is 2/3 of our retail. So we give up 1/3 of our retail value to sell wholesale. That really bothers me a whole lot. It really does. Because our distribution system and home delivery doesn't cost us anything like 1/3 of retail value to do that. Remember, I said we can service over 100 customers for less than a tank of fuel a day, easily. 100 customers that meet only the $25 minimum order, and our orders average over $40 a piece. But only at $25, that's $2,500 plus sales a day. That's on one tank of fuel and one man's labor in a day. That's significantly less than wholesale. I am not crazy about wholesale. I have tried to take some of my live animals, for instance, my beef, and sell them to companies that, I don't want to name any names, but meat companies that are direct marketing beef from several different farmers or ranchers under their label. I can't take those low prices. It makes more sense to me, especially at today's commodity prices. It's easier to take a pot load of my calves and get commodity price, and I'm happier to do it than to sell to some of these somewhat well-known, that most people know, that are out there, companies, marketing companies is all they are, that are actually buying beef from farmers and remarketing for them. Now, just because I can't make it work doesn't mean you can't make it work, especially if you're a large producer. I want to market real farm foods. I want to grow a company with a label, Real Farm Foods. We're in Springfield is the biggest town close to us. Approximately 500,000 people. We are 3 hours from St. Louis, 2.8 million people, and we are about half that distance to Kansas City. So we have a lot of potential. We are putting absolutely no effort at all in trying to sell those whole animals to those companies. It doesn't work for us. The margin, 5 years ago, it was even more advantageous to do that than it is today. But the margin has gotten so close between what fat cattle are and what those companies will pay for your grass-fed beef. The margin is really small. Okay, those other distribution systems. There's one more that is becoming very important to us. It's a wholesale market. It's a wholesale market, but it's still somewhat dealing with almost directly with the customer. This is how it works. There's some terminology that cowboys like me had never heard of until they started doing this marketing. There's something called CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. It primarily started in the produce world. What a CSA is, for some of you that may not have heard it before, let's say I'm a vegetable grower, okay? And at the beginning of the season, as a vegetable grower, I'm going to sign up as many customers as I can that are going to prepay for a box of produce delivered to their door once a week, community supported agriculture. Those customers are going to pay me as a farmer that 24 weeks of the growing season worth of produce. And then that's going to give me the money to grow the produce, and all the money I'm going to get actually for the season. And then I'm going to grow the produce and deliver that produce to the customer. The CSA started actually in New Jersey about 36 years ago. Then it jumped over to California for about 25 years. It's settling in the Midwest right now. We have a produce CSA. About the last 5 or 6 years, what's happening is the CSA concept has jumped from produce to meat. So now there are other produce growers that have CSAs that want to do what's called an add-on. They want to do an add-on meat CSA. So we've got a number of other produce growers growing tomatoes, carrots, lettuce, that kind of stuff. They've got this CSA of customers, and they don't have animals like we've got, the farmer that's growing the produce. So they come to us and we negotiate a price to fill their CSA boxes of meat. This is a good deal because it's all pre-sold, okay? And this, just like the description of a CSA produce box is the customer gets in the box what is growing. It doesn't matter what's in the garden. The customer doesn't get to choose what produce goes in the garden. It's what is growing. That's what the customer gets. Why is that important in a meat CSA? We've got these walk-in freezers that we normally keep around $60,000 to $80,000 worth of meat all the time. There's always some meat that doesn't sell very quickly, okay? That's what goes into a CSA. It becomes a very important part of the other marketing programs that we've got going to move some of this meat through the CSA. And I know I'm talking about some things that, a lot of different things here that are way, way, way different than farming. And I realize that. It's a lot of areas. I don't know, I haven't met anybody that's been successful doing what we're doing that chose just one type of marketing distribution system and nothing else. They seem to all be using a combination, and they almost always start with farmers markets. However, we are one of the very few that are doing home delivery. Everybody seems to go from farmers markets to wholesale. I'm doing a terrible job, I can tell you. This concept of taking an animal, putting it into some kind of container to get it to the end consumer, whether the end consumer is one of our CSA customers, or a home direct customer, or to a grocery store, or to a restaurant, is not as simple as simply killing the animal at home and dressing it and putting it in white butcher paper. A lot more complex. And different areas of the country have different regulations. Right now, my ranch is having all of our meats other than chicken processed at a USDA plant. It is, by law, we can all sell state-inspected meat to most anybody that we want to. But we have, how would I say this nicely? There's one organization that all direct marketers will work with very closely, whether you want to or not, and that's your county health department. And I think we're in maybe 5 or 6 different counties, and every one of those county health departments look at our operation from a slightly different point of view. They are not informed on the laws and regulations as they are in reality. They are informed on the laws and regulations as their superiors have explained it to them. One case in point is that state-inspected meat is perfectly legal in a restaurant. It's perfectly legal in the state of Missouri. State-inspected meat, not USDA-inspected meat. But we don't have a single county, of all the counties we work with, we have no single county health department that recognizes that as law. All they know is their supervisors have told them that they can only approve USDA meat, USDA inspected meat. So we're going to have to get all of our meat USDA inspected. And probably most of us in this room will have to also. We're running out of time. 5 minutes. How can we handle our milk? How do we handle our milk, and how can we sell just raw milk? And there are 26 states right now in the union that allow the sale of raw milk in one form or the other. In Missouri right now, we have a very simple way that in legal way we can sell raw milk. We can sell it directly to the customer, meaning we take the customer's money in our hand and give them the milk on a pre-order. I cannot take milk to a farmer's market and sell it. I cannot take it to the grocery store and sell it. That's one of the reasons, a very good question, and a very important driving factor that drove us to home delivery. And at $8 a gallon, our milk is a very big part of what we're doing. And we only have 20 cows.
That's why you take the credit card number beforehand.
What's that?
That's why you take the credit card number beforehand, so then that's the sales done, then you can bill it.
Yes, that's why we take the credit card. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a credit card. It can be cash, check. In the state of Missouri, the way it works is if you're a resident out there and wherever you live in the state and you want a gallon of my milk, somehow you have to get the message to me that you want a gallon of milk. I can't set up on a corner and a table and hope somebody comes by. You have to contact me. Now, I can contact you like we do through our newsletter and offer it to you, okay? But the sale has to be made, I guess you'd say, in advance. And if you order 2 gallons of milk, and I bring those 2 gallons of milk to your door, and you say, I would like 4 gallons of milk, it's actually illegal for me to do that. It needed to be pre-ordered. Okay? That's how we do it.
Then how do you keep it cool?
How do we keep it cool?
Yeah, I mean, you say you're delivering it, these people are coming home 8 hours later, or
The wintertime is definitely easier. We have refrigeration, we have freezers, we have trucks. We're delivering meat every day anyway. So, yeah.
and it's not spoiling?
In a refrigerator?
No, for the customer when you drop it off to the place.
Oh, in the heat, it's always in a styrofoam cooler.
And it keeps it that long.
I think they did home delivery of milk up until about 1950. So this, and I don't want to get off into. If you were my potential customers, this is all we would talk about, the benefits of natural food. I will say one thing is that we've been raised in an era where, let's just talk about milk just for a minute. I don't want to go too far down this road. We've been raised in an era where we think that a gallon of milk will go bad, set on the counter for a couple of hours. Oh my gosh. And we've allowed this to happen. Now, a lot of you guys probably don't even know what I'm talking about. Pasteurized milk will go bad in a very short amount of time. Raw milk doesn't go bad almost never. It turns into something else called clabbered milk, which is even more nutritious. So there's a lot of this stuff that is part of the marketing of the product, just like the feed that goes into the animals, but it requires a complete different mindset. It requires a complete different way of thinking as a farmer. We've got to take our cowboy hats off and look at this thing from a different perspective. And those guys out there, they know how long that milk will last. And they want it to clabber. They want it to turn into yogurt. Good question. It's a good example of how much we need to train ourselves to start thinking like a customer and quit thinking like a farmer. Question back there?
What about like eggs? Have you ever had anybody get sick from your food trying to sue?
Not yet, but it's probably coming.
And the LLC protects you from that?
I don't know. I'll let you know when it happens. There's several different organizations. My wife should be up here talking about this. Consumer, I'll never think about it. But there's several organizations that have been designed specifically to facilitate the marketing and protection, liability protection of the farmer when he enters this enormous arena of direct marketing his products, because it is way over the top of guys like me. It really is. I know I'm out of time, so I'm going to have to shut it down.